Good afternoon. We are back here in this beautiful land that sort of raised me. And since I'm here in the forest, we're talking about things that happen in the forest and things that you can learn about from the forest. So, what came to my mind today that the creators shared they want me to talk about, because I made a prayer before I started making videos, and I said, let's do this in a good way, and I'll share about what you want me to share, right? It's not me coming up with this stuff. So the next thing that I saw when I was out here that I noticed right away was dragonflies. And these guys have been very strong in my awareness lately. I've been learning lots and lots and lots about dragonflies. They've really been around. They've been really talkative this year. And I've noticed so many people saying they've seen so many dragonflies this year. So what do they mean? All right. So let's talk about that. So dragonflies fit into a particular category of spiritual workers that I would call quantum. And when it comes to quantum spirituality, we're talking about spirituality that does not know time. It does not know a linear timeline. It's not familiar with these human rules that we have constructed in our left brain that we abide by. So what makes dragonflies really special is that they're directly tied to dragon magic and medicine. And here's the thing about both of these guys. I consider them to be interchangeable. It's the same energy. It just, one you might have a vision about it. The other you might see in person. It's like that. And the most important part, first of all, is that these guys are quick and they work with collapsing and opening up timelines. It looks different from how us humans think about it. It's really more like 3D, 4D, and 5D rather than like a 2D straight line. And timelines can go all kinds of ways. They can go off in any direction. They shrink, they grow. They can be like a funnel, a tube. They can be like a string. They can cross up and through different dimensions. Like, they don't really have rules to follow that goes linearly. But what Dragonfly can do, if you're working with these guys, is they can kind of collapse a timeline and create like a wormhole. So if you're working with something that seems like it's going to take a very long time for you to complete it, maybe it's a project you're working on, maybe you're trying to buy a home, something like that, we could have this long tube of timeline with many... Wow. Who is that? Looks like a woodpecker. I saw a blackbird with white under their wings. Hello. Yeah, sounds like a woodpecker. Hello. So you could have a timeline that is, woodpecker's talking to me now. Hello. I guess woodpeckers are part of this whole quantum thing too. That's pretty cool. So anyways, you could have this whole timeline that reaches out and goes all around. It could be very long and twisty. But working with Dragonfly, you can bend that around and create a connection between two parts. So rather than it taking you 10 years to save up for this property you really want, it could take you 6 months. So dragonflies are also associated with miracles in this way. Because you can have things happen when you're working with dragonfly. And I would also just make sure it's a good thing. Something beautiful, because they're very particular about these energies. When you're working with dragonfly, they like to do things for the greater good. They especially like it when you come to them to help somebody else. They love that. Every time I've spoken to dragonfly on the behalf of another person and I've asked for something to help them out, it's been like less than a 24-hour turnaround each and every time. So it's really easy to help somebody else because they like something given freely from your heart. So this is kind of like what these guys can help you with. Other things that I've heard from people who work with dragonfly energy is that they're very good with invisibility. Because just think about how fast they move. Their lives move so fast. And something really cool I read once? I'll tell you a little story about this. So this could be a real study. Maybe not, but I remember hearing this like over 10 years ago and it blew my mind. I was reading something about parakeets. I've had parakeets my whole life. I love them. They're so cute. They sing. They're so sweet. They're wonderful birds. And I read something about, somebody said that it's possible that actually parakeets and other small animals might experience time much slower than what we experience. So like you could see a parakeet playing with a toy and they lose interest and then go to another toy 30 seconds later, and then they go eat and then they preen, and things happen so quick with them. But some people say that it might be because they literally experience time much slower. So to them, that's not fast at all. So like an 8-year lifespan for a parakeet to them feels like 100 years. But this is also because it's context. You know, it's sort of like how if you're 5 years old and you're waiting for school to end, it could seem like the longest time ever. It feels like an eternity because in the context of your life, you haven't lived for that long. So every amount of time feels like forever. But when you're 85 years old, I've heard many people around this age tell me, they're like, time just flies, dude. You know, time goes by so quickly you don't even notice. It just goes. Because in that context, we have so much more time. So this is also what applies to Dragonfly too. Like, how long do these guys live? Probably like 6 months, 2 years maximum, I'm guessing. I really don't know. But when we see them zip around, they move, excuse me, mosquito, they move so quickly that it can look like it's invisible. You know, they fly through the air and suddenly they're here, suddenly they're here, suddenly they're here, suddenly they're here. It's like hummingbird. So the mosquitoes have found me. I forgot to ask the land if I needed bug spray. Forgot in my car. But anyways, so this is kind of what we're working with. To the dragonfly, that might actually be a long time that it takes for them to get from here to here based on the context that they have of their experience. And also because time does not work in a linear fashion the way we presume it to be in the 3D world, right? Just from our example right now. So that's why Dragonfly can be so good at working with these like sometimes finicky little timeline hops, like these quantum shifts. They're really good at it because first of all, they're really small in the physical. They can just like zip between blades of grass, no problem. Because you want to look at the physical characteristics of a being too when you're learning about them. And then they love to be around water. You probably know the transforming power of water. And then next, they weave between dimensions. It is absolutely limitless the places that they can travel to because they're so small and light and they're so good at transforming, shifting, moving. You kind of almost never know what to expect with them. So that's why if you have a prayer for something good to happen quickly in your life, you might want to go to Dragonfly and talk with them about it. I would also say, in my experience, they love songs. They love songs. A few months ago, I had a relative who was going through a hard time with something. It was troublesome and it was sad and it was like, oh my goodness, this person could get really hurt here. And so I ended up going to this pond actually, and I brought my drum to sing and pray about it. And I found that there were lots of dragonflies hanging out with me, and they were hovering right in front of me the whole time I sang and prayed. It was like 20 or 30 minutes, and I had like a dragonfly audience. So I offered my songs to them, and I was like, hey guys, can you help out my relative here? Here's what's happened. Here's how I feel. Here's what I think maybe could be a solution, but overall, I want you guys to decide and help us figure this out. And so I gave all those prayers as an offering. Less than 24 hours later, that person's situation changed. And it was a very positive outcome. I was very thankful for that. So I'm not saying that I did it, but I think that certainly asking Dragonfly for help was the best thing I could have done, because I couldn't have seen a way for them to get out of this situation. Like their heart was hurting so bad. When somebody's in that much pain, it's hard for them to make a good decision because it's like being blinded and muffled by that pain. But here's Dragonfly, who is light and swift, who can break through that. So if you have a Dragonfly guide, you might find that you're attracted to these types of like quantum ways and healing and working in prayer for other people to help them out. And I encourage you to continue doing that and dive into it. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.